Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Be Good Leadership. I am Ronnie Caldwell, and hopefully, we've got some advice or some learnings today that will help you in not just your leadership journey, but also help you in life in general. So, it's been the first time in a long time that I've been back working in a school for an extended period of time. So, working as an interim principal, helping out with getting a school situated for the next leadership group that's coming in. And it's been great working with teachers, working with students, working with administrators again in a building for an extended period of time. And one of the funny things that happen is of course, as I've always done as a leader, and I think that's really important, is I write emails to students. So I've always done that as an administrator. I would write one or two a week sometimes, but usually one email just to students about life, the kind of advice that I give here on online or anything like that. I would just give to students, and I always got a good response from them, and I always enjoyed doing them. So I decided when I was back here at the school, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start that up again. And so I sent an email, and I don't know, I was going back, and what ended up happening is that as I was typing in the years of the grade levels, as the email chain is, I ended up sending the email to one of the year groups that I was currently working with, but I sent it to a bunch of students who had formerly been there. These were the wrong years. I mean, I was off. I'll blame a little bit on jet lag, but what have you. So the first email I sent it out that way, and I was like, oh, I sent this to the wrong group of people. And then I had to send it again. And so, of course, I got a bunch of emails from the kids, and some kids came by and they're like, hey, did you know that actually when you sent that email, you sent it to like last year's seniors and you sent it to the seniors from the year before? And there's people who still on that chain. They were like wondering, who is this guy sending me emails? And so that a little embarrassing. It was funny, and but I had sent out a corrective email to everybody else, and it was funny because when I was thinking about it, I kind of laughed it off and then went forward, and then it was interesting because I there was enough people who kind of approached me about it. They were just like, "Hey, man, don't worry about it. This, that, and the other," and I wasn't worried about it anymore. And but it was interesting the amount of teachers and some like students who came. It was fun. It was fun, and we were laughing about it. But I was laughing about it, right? I was laughing about it, and I had moved on already. And the feeling that it seemed like a lot of people had about it was that, wow, that must have been. I mean, they were feeling sorry for me, and I get that, and I love that compassion. But I think the other thing that it kind of brought to mind is that people weren't sure that I had moved on quick enough, right? People weren't sure that, oh man, did you get over this mistake, or how was it making me look? And I realized that, oh, Ronnie, well, you've gotten over that pretty quickly, and that's not something that usually bothers me. And so it made me think that one of the things I think that when we do a good job of subordinating our ego and knowing that we're going to make mistakes, and that when we make a mistake, the real issue is okay, is there a corrective action I can take? Let me go ahead and take that action. The more you do that and the more we rep that out, this idea of bouncing right back, of saying, okay, made this mistake, I understand that happened, now let's make a corrective, and putting it in perspective, is it really that big of a deal, is a game changer. It's a game changer in the way that it allows you to flow from thing to thing. You also learn much more quickly, and there's a lot more comedy to life, right? Now, some people might worry and say, well, if I made that kind of mistake, my boss would kill me. And maybe so. I can't say that. I can't speak to what kind of boss you have or what kind of environment you work on. And maybe you're working in an environment where any kind of mistake will cost you. Or maybe you have a partner or friends who don't give you a break. But you should give yourself a break. The one thing is, the first thing I think that you have to learn is a little bit of self forgiveness. And I don't mean that, to not be ashamed or not feel guilty if you've done something that is completely against your values. No, no, no. And some people say that that's what they think of when you're talking about self forgiveness. When I talk about self forgiveness, is that I legitimately know I made a mistake. Um, I don't want to do that again, and so I'm going to move forward. Right? Forgive and remember, as I said before. I made a whole video on that. But I think that what's really important is that too many of us, one, we fret so much about being perfect the first time that we don't get going. And then if we're not perfect or if we make some kind of mistake, we have trouble bouncing back and we're so worried that other people are looking at us, that other people are thinking we're foolish. And most times, I mean, people are pretty cool. So if they see that you've made a mistake, most people will be like, oh man, it's all right. They'll give you a pat on the back and you move forward. There's some people who want to be jerks, but I feel like there are much fewer, there are many fewer of them than there are the people who will, the people who matter, who will just kind of like, give you a pat on the back and move you forward. So what I think is so important in all things, especially working in a school where nothing's ever, you can't always predict what's going to happen in the school. Working with teachers, working with parents, working with students, you're working with so many different viewpoints, administrators, people seeing different things, people having a different idea about what happened in the same situation. It's natural to have this constant feeling of, man, maybe I should have said that instead. Maybe I should have done this instead. Or maybe, you know what, we could have gone about that in a different way. And there will be that feeling and there will be those mistakes, but it's so important that you realize mistakes are normal, that there's whatever happens, how do you move forward? Now, I was lucky to have been raised around a family, around people who constantly just said, you'll be all right. All right, cool. You'll be all right. You'll be okay. Well, you know what to do next time. Move forward. And I think that the more we can say that to ourselves, the better. And the more that we can provide that to others. To say, hey, well, you know what you did wrong, right? Or you know what the mistake is. You know what you can do next time. Let's move forward. Let's see, right? Let's keep going. And so I think that having that internal voice in your head that says, hey, oh man, makes a little joke out of it, makes it a little humorous. Okay, that was funny. That happened. But I'm not going to hide in a corner. I'm not going to stop taking action. I'm not going to beat myself up. What I'm going to do instead is say, what do I need to do next time? How do we get better and move forward? You got to be able to forgive yourself and you got to be able to bounce back from mistakes because that's the normal thing in life. Actually, more things will not go exactly your way than will go exactly your way. And if you're going to live this life, then you've got to get good at accepting that and then coming back and move forward anyway. And so I think the more that we learn to do that, the more that we support that, either as parents, as friends, as administrators, teachers, as students, peers, all that, the more that we can, like I said, internalize that within ourselves, but then also give that grace to others, the better off we'll be. Now, as always, the advice is free and you don't have to take it. Be good.